I'm going to talk about a little bit of the life of Ruth Fuller Sasaki and um, her steadfastness towards achieving her life mission, while also speaking about balance and rest with like balancing activity with rest. So that's what it's going to be about. So as we begin here, let us take a few moments to just settle. Again, this is largely for me, my own nerves, but it's helpful. So just maybe even closing the eyes and taking a few slow, deep breaths in through the nose and maybe sigh it out the mouth. Sensing your body as it rests on the surface beneath it, all the points of contact that your body has to the surfaces, the floor or the chair, the cushion, connecting into the movement of the breath within the body and the movement of the heart. Breathing slowly. And then when you're ready, coming back, opening the eyes. All right. So thank you for practicing with me. So yes, for my article in the August newsletter, I read about the life of Ruth Fuller Sasaki, and she was really an amazing woman. She was quite instrumental in the expansion of Zen Buddhism to the West, and she remains to this day, I believe, the only Westerner and woman to be ordained a priest of a Rinzai temple. So she was a force of nature, and she once she became a practitioner of Zen when she was in her 20s, she deemed it her religion. And from that point forward, she moved in a consistent, steady manner towards reaching her goals. And her goals were, again, to kind of forge the gap between the West and the East. And so throughout her life, she worked towards producing English translations of Zen writings. She wrote her own essays, which are profound, and I really enjoyed reading them. And I look forward to talking about them in the Women's Dharma Circle. Um, and she also was incredible at helping Westerners come to Japan uh, to study formal Zen. And she even wrote like a whole like informational piece about what to expect. She didn't want to blow sunshine up their butts. Excuse my language. She wanted to have a realistic, she wanted everyone to have a realistic view of how it's going to be once they come over to Japan, and a non-idealized view. But she was really instrumental at that. And then she created, her own institute in New York. And there was just a lot of things that she did. But what was really resonant for me was her consistency. And if she put her mind to it, there was nothing that she couldn't accomplish. She truly believed that. She was extremely confident and persevering, and she didn't allow her status as a woman to stop her. And when she first went to Japan to study formally, she was unable at first to get a teacher due to her Western and woman status. But eventually she did get a teacher, and the monks in the Zendo were not having it, were very dissatisfied, I guess, that a woman would be in the Zendo with them. But because of her tenacity and her persevering spirit, she was accepted. and she made a name for herself, and it was really amazing. And so anyway, all of this to say is that it kind of reminded me of a sutta called Crossing Over the Flood, a discourse the Buddha gave. And I think like somebody asked the Buddha how he crossed over the flood of craving and attachment. And he answered in the following way: I crossed over the flood without pushing forward, without staying in place. When I pushed forward, I whirled about. When I stayed in place, I sank. And so I crossed over the flood without pushing forward, without staying in place. And so to me, this is symbolic of kind of how Ruth lived her life. I mean, she was very fervent, and very rigorous. But that also matched the style of Zen that she participated in. She was in the Rinzai school, which Zen, to my understanding, is broken into the Soto schools or lineage and the Rinzai. And the Soto, I think, is what our temple is. It's considered a farmer Zen. It's more down to earth and more just being in this moment, being with our practice, sitting in meditation, whereas the Rinzai school is very structured, rigorous. They focus on koan study primarily, with a heavy focus also on sitting in zazen. And I mean, and I've heard stories about this about a lot of people, but it was amazing that she, coming from the West and, into this Eastern temple, she sat in a position in her meditation for so long that her legs became paralyzed and she had to be carried out of the temple. That's how dedicated she was. And it's really inspiring. So there was definitely a steadiness, though, to her approach of reaching her mission. I would say that, uh, everything I've read hasn't spoken to how she took care of her body. It is very much focused on that activity that. I wouldn't necessarily call it pushing forward against, the waves, but there was consistent, intentional movement towards her goals. And so, with this sutta of, not pushing forward, because if you push too much forward and fight against the current, you get whirled around, you get kind of lost maybe within the struggle. But if you stay still, you sink, you kind of become overwhelmed and consumed by whatever it is. And so in the sutta, it's referring to, the crossing the other shore of, crossing past the craving, the anger, the delusion. But I think it can be applied across the board to how we approach our life and this practice. And so, for a long time, I was pushing. Um, Now, whereas Ruth may have, pushed or, actively moved forward in a skillful way, I don't know if my way was too skillful. So I burned out. I burned myself out. And so I think that it is incredibly important to have a life of balance. Buddhism is considered the middle way. And so the middle way in this regard means to me a way of activity and rest. So moving forward and then, sitting still for a bit. Not so that you can get, consumed, but that so that your body can rest and integrate uh, what it has learned, and then become stronger. Because uh, I I believe that Ruth Fuller Sasaki was a bodhisattva because she worked tirelessly for herself and the well-being of every sentient being, and that is our path as well, being bodhisattvas, and it is in our best. Uh, it's to be a bodhisattva, we need to take care of ourselves, because if we don't, then we peter out and we fizzle out too soon. And so it is necessary to have both components of the activity and rest so that we can then be the best version of ourselves to then go out and help all sentient beings. And so the question I have for everyone is, are there areas in your life where you may be standing still or pushing too hard forward? And, if there are, what are some ways maybe in which you can begin to bring a more balanced approach to your practice? And so we can open this up for discussion if you like, or comments, questions, or hearts too. That's cool. Michelle.
This really resonates for me. So thank you so much. And I didn't know about this person. So it's really interesting. And I feel like there are a variety of areas in my life where I'm either, pushing too hard and then, like you said, get burned out, or maybe frustrated with, oh, I'm not where I want to be. Or just not doing anything because I'm burned out. And I mean, I can think of a variety of places in my life, like spiritually, physically, work related, all that. And this is just super valuable, is all I wanted to say. And I'm glad to know about that sutra. So thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing. Would anyone else like to share? Oh, Deb, yes.
Hi. Thank you so much. What a wonderful, well-balanced, inspiring talk. And I think as women, we have a tendency to work, 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 and serve others and forget to do self-care. And several years ago, my feng shui consultant convinced me that I needed to have this on my altar. Let me get it close enough for you guys to see. This is Kuan Yin, Avalokiteshvara, in the position of repose, pouring forth the nectar of compassion and mercy, but eyes closed. She's at rest, hands resting. And I'd never heard of this or seen it, and I didn't even recognize that this was another apparently well-known, very famous image of Kuan Yin, Avalokiteshvara. The story that my feng shui lady reminded me was when we inhale, we also must exhale. And this is the creator on the exhale. All of us need to breathe in and breathe out. Thank you for a wonderful talk.
Thank you for sharing that. I love that so much. Anyone else like to share before we move into Donald?
Good morning, Reverend Angela. Thank you very much. So I get stuck in, because I like to do, and I'm stuck in your talk. So there's a question involving that we don't want to stay where we are because we'll sink, and we don't want to strive, and I'm left with like the chant after the heart song where we talk about, going somewhere else, but we're already there, although we haven't left here. And I'm trying to wrap my head around that because I get out of your talk and it's my experience. I just stay where, maybe where I would, I'm, this is half baked, okay? But that's the way I figured things out. But maybe in the stillness rather than sinking, there's another aspect of stillness that's conducive with that heart sutra song afterwards. Can you speak to that a little? Because I'm stuck on the sinking or striving, and either way doesn't meet where the tires don't meet the road. Is there a question there that you could answer?
I don't know. We can see. I don't know. For me, it's
Please.
there's what is it like? There's action within stillness or something, or you can be super busy but not really doing much. Kind of a thing. It's paradoxical in that sense, but I think that when I'm thinking of a flood, I'm thinking of, lots of waves and stuff. And so if you're trying to get to the other side, you have to fight those waves and be thrown about. And instead, but you don't want to sit still because then you'll be consumed by the waves. So instead, working with the waves, riding the waves, kind of like a surfer, so that you're utilizing the momentum to propel you forward, but in a slow, steady pace kind of way, instead of, fighting or just giving up. But would one of the other reverends or monks like to speak to this?
Angela, I just want to jump in and say thank you. And in the middle of what you're saying, some things like fingers pointing at the moon maybe can't really be expressed well. But I like where you're pointing, and I'm okay with not knowing everything, but I want to hear what they have to say. But once again, thank you for your talk because it's inspiring. Maybe the mud's a good thing.
Maybe so. Deb, would you like to share?
Yes. Let's see, there I am. Um, Back to the inhale, exhale, that rhythm. As we meditate every day, we're just be. You be here, you be now, not striving, not pushing, be right here, right now. And then we go back to our life. We have stuff to get done. We all have mundane lives and obligations and families and work and all that. And retired professor Amit Goswami, the huge advocate of meditation, said that Frank Sinatra got it right when he said, do, be, do, be, do, be. We need both. We've got to go back and forth. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. I love that. Would one of the clergy like to speak more to this? No. Okay.